Okay, this video now is going to be part 5, and so we are continuing the discussion of variable declarations. So we want to declare the data type of a variable only once. So if we go back to our notes up here, we said that what we're declaring is the data type and the name. So the idea here is we only want to declare the data type once. In other words, let's show what that means. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go, what is the error message? And so let's go back to JGrasp and demonstrate this. Let's say that later on in the program here, now first of all, what we need to do actually is hit undo and get the spelling right. Okay, so now the spelling matches length and length, and so we're set. So if we should then be able to compile and print, and it should print the 84, the value of the variable, which it does, as you can see down here. So now let's go back up into our source code here. Let's say later on in the program somewhere we want to update the length. Let's say now we want to put the length of maybe a badminton court. Now I don't know what the length of a badminton court is, but let's just say it's 30 feet. And so we decide, okay, we're going to use the same memory location, and we're going to replace the 84 with a 30, because you can do that because variables vary. It's not going to store two values, it's going to replace one with the other. Now to do that, let's say that you declare this variable as an int again, even though I said don't. So here we are. We have declared the variable as an int, even though we already did one time, and then we're giving it a new value. We're updating it as the book says. We're updating the variable, which is good, which is fine to do. And so let's go ahead and compile it and see what it does. Okay, so the error says the variable length is already defined. The variable length is already defined, and I told you that's what would happen. It would yell at you if you did that, and so you can't do that. And so let's take this variable data type off and just have it length is assigned 30, and let's compile it now and see what it does. So you see it works now. And what was the problem? The problem was we declared the variable as its data type a second time, and so the error message is the variable is already defined. And remember, we said defined and declared are the same thing. Now also a variable declaration, and I've already illustrated this, it reserves a storage location literally in your computer's memory and storage area on the hard drive. Reserves a storage location in the computer memory with a specific name and a data type. Alright, so it's all going on behind the scenes. It's not anything that you see happening on the screen. Okay, now data types and values must match. So when you declare a variable, you're saying it's a data type, let's say it's an int. Well, your values better be an int. Better be ints. Let's say you go, okay, we're going to use doubles. Where your values better be decimals then. You say it's a string. Well, you better not make a value be a number or a decimal. It better be words or letters or symbols or things like that. And so they have to match, because that's the whole point. The whole point of having a data type and declaring it is that's what makes that location accept only certain types of data. So a string is a capital S, right? And the book, which I like this, says it's just a group of characters. So what I have in bold here is the simplest way to memorize these things. So a string is a group of characters. Alright? And if you know what characters are, that'll be easy to remember. Examples again of characters are letters, symbols, spaces, punctuation, and things like that. Alright? And remember, strings are always surrounded by quotation marks. So if you declare the name of a person, then you want to put that person's name in quotation marks. And then int. Int is short for integer. And we should already know that with our math classes, that int is short for integer. And everybody knows, right, that integers are whole numbers. Positive or negative whole numbers. Or they're counting numbers. So the easiest way to remember this is that an int is an integer, or whole numbers, and there's no fractional part. It's just there's no decimal or fractional part to it. And double. Now, double is interesting because it is actually, what it is a decimal. So now it doesn't make sense unless you understand what double means. Now, I actually looked this up, but we're not going to discuss it. But it's really kind of interesting. But there is a specific reason why the word double is used. For us, right now, no matter whether we understand what double means or not, you can memorize that doubles refer to decimals because they both start with a D. Makes it easy. It has a fractional part. Fractional parts, like 3/4, has a decimal representative, and that's what we're using is our decimals in JGraph or Java. Decimals are stored as they're stored as floating point numbers. It's kind of a weird word. Floating point numbers. Well, what does that mean? What's floating point? Well, here's what that means. I'll just type it in here. Let's say we have a number like 45035. Okay, well, you could put the decimal point here, or maybe you could put it here, or here. So the decimal point floats. It can go to different locations. That's what happens when you float. And so it's called a floating point, decimal point. And floating point numbers, which are decimals, have two possible data types. One is a double, which is what we're going to be using in this semester, and then you have a float, so you have string, int, doubles, and you have a float. Now, we are not going to use float, but here's the main idea with this. If you remember, it said when you declare a data type, only see what was it? Oh, where was that error message? Well, I think it was this one. It said, actually it didn't just say the variable, but it says the length has already been declared. Here's what that means. The point is that a double uses up twice as much storage. And so let's just, for illustration's sake, say that you have a memory cell in there, and it's going to be this long because it's going to hold this many characters, and that might be the double. And then the float is going to be shorter. So the length, when you declare a data type, you're actually declaring how long the storage container is, how big it is, how much space it takes up on your hard drive. Because the double uses twice as much storage. It has more characters, twice as many characters as a float does. But that makes it longer, and the length, a longer decimal is going to be more precise. And so think about it here. And the interesting point here is that I'll mention here is that when you declare a variable, a memory location, to be a double or whatever, that location is that large, whether you use the whole thing or not. So let's say that you have a decimal, it's only like something like 17.5. Well, you're not really using the entire storage space, but that doesn't increase or decrease the size of the storage. It's like when we walk into our classroom, one class has 15, the other class has 25. Well, we don't change the size of the classroom just because there's a smaller group coming in for one of the class periods. And so that's the same thing here. Now, why is it more precise, being longer? Well, here's what happens. Notice something. If you were to, it's hard to find a place to type in here, but let's do this. Let's say you took a number like 6.5. Okay, that's has a certain precision to it. But let's say you, instead of 6.5, you say 6.48. Now 6.48 rounds to 6.5, but which is more precise? Well, it's the one that has that 48.48. But then let's say instead of 6.48, we go, okay, well, how about 6.482? Well, that rounds to 6.5 or 6.48, but it's even more precise because now it's going out to the third decimal place, and so forth and so on. And so a longer decimal is going to be more precise. So let's go back up here, and actually the truth is we are going to stop at this point, but you have to, one thing that you need to do is do in the textbook is you need to do section 2.1.1. So it's about page 34, and do these activities, and then section 2.1.2 do these activities, and use these tables as resources. That will be helpful. So do those exercises in your textbook, and you will be good, and you will have completed everything that we did for today. And then here's the assignment that we were supposed to do for tonight, and that's it.